Stand for everyone, please. Father, we just thank you, Lord, for this day. Thank you, Lord, for the Lincoln County, the great opportunities that we have to live here. Thank you, Lord, for our state and the great nation that we have. And Lord, most of all, thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to serve, to give back, Lord, and just the opportunity just to give to our children. Lord, we ask that you be with us today as we go through the agenda and the items that we do in the business that we have, that we keep our focus on you, how we should be. Give us wisdom, Lord. Just may we bring you honor, bring you glory in everything that we say and everything we do. We ask in Christ's name.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
These are adoption of the agenda.
Adoption of agenda as presented.
Second. No additional correction. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion passes. We'd like to welcome any visitors. We got all the visitors, but it's good to see everybody this morning. This would be a time for public comment. If you want to address the board, this would be the time to do so. Ample opportunity. Good. Welcome, everyone. It's good to see you out here in the summer. I know you are glad to be here this morning, right? Okay. Moving right along. Item D. Mr. Thompson. There you go. I'm sorry. The Golden School Awards.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm happy to present the Golden School Award. The Golden School Award is going to be presented to 3 of our schools this year. This is the 3rd year in a row that 3 of our schools have been chosen to receive a Golden School Award. The qualifications are to have 8% of the school staff trained in volunteerism. The school has to have a designated volunteer coordinator, and the total number of volunteer hours equals at least twice the number of students enrolled. The 3 schools, Chiefland Elementary, principal is Michael Homan, here today Marlene Wiggins, and volunteer coordinator is Becky Lloyd. Their total number of volunteer hours for the year was 4,499 hours. Our second school is Joyce Bullock Elementary. Principal is Melissa Lewis. Volunteer coordinator is Misty Kirk. Their total number of volunteer hours was 6,611.5 hours. Yankee Town's principal is Danae Hurst, and volunteer coordinator is Francie Daniels. Their total number of volunteer hours for the year was 609.5 hours. Thank you for all of our schools for working here, and thank you for all your hard work. I'd like to present you with your award.
Ms. Cooper, you want individual pictures or collective?
We could do it all together or both. It's up to you.
Let's do both. Let's do a collective thing, and let's do individuals so board members can go on.
Yeah.
So can I get one of each board member of their school? Who wants to go first?
Well, let's let Wilson Thank you. Come on, Chiefland. Chiefland had lots of volunteer points.
Summer of excitement continues.
Yes, it does.
Okay, so moving to I want to bypass that because when I know a lot of volunteers, that's a lot of 6,000, 4,600 is a lot of hours. Those are unpaid hours too, correct, Ms. Lewis? That our people from our community come and give to make sure that our schools are special. That's the reason we're special.
Like I said, it's great to live in a certain county.
Absolutely. They say all the things we don't have, we also have some of the most important.
Exactly.
Yes. Moving to ID, Mr. John Lott. This is board member, this will be in the back, the last tab.
The last tab on mine is yellow, but in front of me, yellow tab. The land contract is at the top of it, vacant land contract to Bar Association. But behind that is a map that may help you more about where the location of this property is. Probably a year ago, I was approached by Williston resident Derek Williams, who owns some land on the north, sort of northwest corner, I guess, of Williston Elementary's property. And you can't really tell from this map, but on the back side of what he is proposing to purchase, the property line actually takes a jog there to the north. So his proposal was to purchase that little sliver of land. It comes up to 0.821 acres. This is a property that, by doing that, it would square up the property line for really us and for him as well. You can see that most of that property is, a lot of it has some trees on it, on that property line. The majority of those trees at the present time are our trees. So his proposal is to purchase that land for $7,500. Again, it's 0.821 acres. And he would take care of the cost involved with the purchase, as far as closing costs, surveying costs, et cetera, that may occur.
Any questions? Looking at it.
Something go through a real estate agent and just we're selling it in the contract ourselves.
That's correct.
Right.
Mr. Delaney's done the contract.
Yes, he's looked at the contract and has actually made some adjustments.
I don't know if you can see, I pulled it up on the property appraiser, but it actually, if you look at the property and physically go look at it like I did this weekend, Mr. Weber might be able to tell us, but that's, I think it makes it a safer situation from the playground being there. In other words, that track is just in the north end of that. And that fence is actually run different than the property lines now.
Right, we had to adjust the fence, and Mr. Stopman could probably address this as well. But on that, our high fence, which is part of our school hardening, we actually had to zigzag out a little bit, and actually the fence is not on our property line. You know, we had to come off of because of the trees. So it just wasn't worth the expense to clear the trees. So that's another reason. But I think this would be a beneficial sale for us.
I move approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. The only other thing that I would say, because I looked at it from a different standpoint this weekend, some, because that's a pretty nice development. But that piece of land proposed would be landlocked. There would be no other way to get to it through the cul-de-sac or whatever. So I think
it makes sense.
to me it does.
And those trees now would be on his property and his responsibility, and so we don't have any problems there.
Right.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Move to item E.
myself or met Dr. Pratt, so maybe you could kind of just introduce yourself to us. So I know you've done a wonderful job and been a great addition to the district. So, not to put you, I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
That's all right, I'm kind of accustomed to it, but I'm Dr. Pratt, and I guess my credentials are counseling, psychology, and administration. I have my doctorate in psychology, and I'm also licensed. Was hired last year to provide mental health services to the students here in Levy County. Quite a challenge. I have worked for Levy County before it passed. I started out here in '86 as a school psychologist. Worked for 2 years in that position, and then I worked at one school, which was my previous schools were Brunson Elementary and Williston Middle School. And so then I became assistant principal at Brunson Elementary School, and from there to director of human resources. Retired, that was in '91. Retired from that in 2001, and then served in Alachua County as that director of human resources from '91 to 2003, in which I retired. And then I came back to Levy County in 2004 when you established the Summit program, and I provided the therapy for those kids there at Summit until 2011. Retired again in 2011 from paid work. And then I developed a program for parents and Head Start students. Ran that program for about 13 years. And the focus was on reading literacy skills. Very good program. And then by chance, I'm back. I was looking basically for a part-time job. Didn't want anything full-time, but my passion has always been students and prevention. So I'm really big on prevention. We can do that. But when I spoke with Dr. Hall, we started talking about mental health and the students. And for some reason, I accepted full-time. So when I got home, I told my husband, I said, I think I did the wrong thing. He said, well, what did you do? I said, I accepted full-time when I only wanted part-time. He said, well, remember, you can always retire again if something should happen.
It sounds like it's not taken, so I mean, I'm happy.
I love what I do, with mental health, and I've worked with a variety of students over the years, including those that have been adjudicated by the court system to get services. I've worked with pregnant teens and parents who needed to be stabilized before the baby was born. Worked with EBD students, just a variety over my years. But last year, when Dr. Hall hired me, it was supposed to be for the Williston community. But because there is such a shortage with mental health providers, I took on the district. And it was a challenge because there were more kids that were in need than I really thought possible. So my caseload was really heavy last year. Of the 147 that were referred to me, I had a caseload of 94. And I wasn't able to see them on a weekly basis like I wanted to, but I did manage to see them twice a month, which for some students are not enough. But anyway, that's who I am in a kind of a nutshell. I'm a workaholic. That's not a compliment, but I do enjoy what I do. And I just want to thank you for the opportunity to give me this opportunity to introduce myself and to also let you know that I appreciate your hiring me. Thank you.
Thank you. She's very good at what she does. Yet again, I always
Have to
these
follow.
tough acts. But I
actually didn't get the number I was waiting on from DOE until mid-morning on Friday, so I spent all weekend doing the ads, rerunning the budgets. You can't believe how much work goes into one little, what is it, 6-digit, 5-digit number. So, again, I'm sorry, but most of what we're going to discuss today, we discussed at our last meeting. So today is the budget review. We will approve the trim ads. This is part of the trim schedule. By the 24th day of the trim cycle, we have to present to the board a proposed budget. Next week is our first of the 2 public hearings. It's to adopt our tentative millage and budget. And then finally, September 10th, we will adopt our final millage and budget. Okay, so at the budget workshop in June, we discussed the first calculation or the conference report, and we compared that with the forward calculation of last fiscal year. And so what I was waiting for on Friday came, which is our second calculation, which has that wonderful RLE, required local effort number. But here are the only changes between the first calc and the second calc, which is what we use to finalize our budget and will be part of the tentative budget. So we showed a net increase of $40,200 in categoricals. The 2 categoricals that carry those increases is the sparsity supplement and the compression adjustment. Quickly, the sparsity supplement recognizes the relatively higher cost of smaller districts due to sparse student populations. So the increase was just a little over, almost $10,000, just a little shy of $10,000, but annually we receive about $3.1 million in this specific supplement. The compression adjustment, these dollars are provided to fund any difference between the amount generated in the discretionary 0.748 mil levy per FTE student and an amount equal to the state average. So one of the qualifications, you must have less than 24,000 students to qualify for this particular categorical. The increase here was a little over 34,000, but annually we get about 1.4 million in this categorical. These are more flexible categoricals, so it was nice to see the increase in these. All right, so now let's look at the local funding changes last year versus this year. So our total required local effort has decreased by a little over $12,000. Our discretionary local effort, that 0.748 mil, has increased a little under 80,000. And then our capital outlay, which is the 1.5 mil, has increased close to 160,000. But let's talk a minute about where these changes come from. So if you look at the first page of your handout. All right, let's discuss trim, which is truth and millage. Since you'll be approving the ads we need to run for the tentative budget today. The first page of your handout is a copy of our certified taxable value, which is a little over $2.1 billion. Line 7, which is on line 4. Line 7 is last year's final gross taxable value. So this upcoming fiscal year 1920 is a little over $96 million higher than last year. However, with the current year's proposed required local effort, or RLE millage rate, we will actually receive less in revenues, that $12,000 loss I said. So we will not be advertising an increase like we did last year. You'll notice that our RLE is lower this year on line 16 when compared to prior line 9. And it's lower than line 14, which is the rollback rate. So again, we will not be advertising for a tax increase. What is the rollback rate? Most of us know what the rollback rate is, but as a reminder, it's the rate that would generate the same amount of property tax revenues as approved for the prior year. When the tax base increases like this year, the rollback rate is less than the prior year's rate. It simply means that the tax value has increased, but the local tax rate did not increase, and the DOE set our RLE, like Dr. Seuss, so that we will collect no more than last year and even a little less this year. So the estimated amounts we'll receive for this year is for our RLE, we have a little over $8 million. For, again, that's $12,000 less than last year. Our basic discretionary, almost $80,000 more this year at $3.1 million. And then our capital outlay, which is our 1.5 mil, our basic discretionary will receive a little, close to $80,000, which is 1.5 mil. Our capital outlay will receive about $160,000 more, and that's 3.1 million. Yes.
One thing I just want to make sure that she understands is that in education, we do not set any of our millage rates. State sets all of our millage rates. So we don't have any discretion, so to speak, say, well, we want more money to do something, we can't do that. We have to go forward.
So the RLE and the basic discretionary, the net for those is an increase of about a little over 67,000, and that would go to general operations. The increase you see in capital outlay is more narrow, and those are only for capital-like expenditures, or capital expenditures. Does anybody have any questions? All right, so let's talk a little bit about our proposed budget. So page 2 of your handout outlines the general fund expenditures. And this is projecting where we will end fiscal year 18-19 and compares us to the tentative budget for fiscal year 19-20. And it's based on object codes. As you know, the general fund is utilized to budget the majority of the district's daily operations. Revenues for the general fund are derived primarily from state allocations and local property tax levies. Before I move on, does anybody have any questions? I'm going to go through this a little bit more.
Why do we see we're gonna have 11% decrease on the first line?
All right. Okay, federal through state, that's probably a grant. That's where you'll see certain, you used to see the hurricane revenue, and that 11% is relatively small, but it's probably some sort of grant that we're not sure we're getting the funding for. You'll notice if you go all the way to the bottom, you see that we're going to have a 4% increase in expenditures. But actually, when you compare the tentative budget to last year's budget, which isn't on here, you just see the activity, there's less than a 1% growth. The lapse time and other activities play a role in the final expenditures, and for some reason it's just down compared to last year. I mean, there is a reason, but we're fleshing that all out as we develop our financial report. So the growth isn't as extreme as it looks. So
We're budgeting about a $23,000 expense over revenue, right?
no, it was 23,000. I'm sorry. Yes, I heard 20. I heard something totally different. Yes, you are absolutely right. So as you look at the fund balance, everybody looks at that financial condition ratio. I just want to caution us a little bit because this will change. Our books remain open for 45 days into the new year. So as we develop our annual financial report, we're able to better categorize the revenues contained within that fund balance because they each have a category. As you see, the restricted, those are usually your state categoricals. They can only be spent specifically how the state tells us, is estimated to be about $750. The assigned, which would be your local categoricals, or some decision the board has made on how to spend these dollars, is 1.3. The unassigned is 3.6, but however, contained within that unassigned is the 5% minimum that the board policy dictates to keep. So then you have the unassigned after the 5%. Everything looks positive, it looks good, but I just would exercise great caution until we finalize our financial report.
When we meet next week, would you bring the rankings of fund balance throughout the state? Could you bring that to us?
It will be, I think it'll be for 17-18. I don't think they have 18-19 yet, and I think we did, if we didn't provide 17-18, I'll find out where to get it. I want to say the state average was well over 9, maybe even, might have jumped to 12 or something.
But I knew we were fifth from the bottom, so.
Which I believe you're talking about the 17-18 number. Yeah.
Is that in reference to the financial condition ratio?
Yes. So 17-18, we would have still been at 7%, but I just remind everyone what builds that financial condition ratio is your assigned and your unassigned, and your assigned are very important. That's where a lot of school rollovers sit, those kinds of things sit in that assignment. talk about the capital fund budget. The capital project funds are used to account for acquisition, construction, renovation, and maintenance of buildings and equipment. The primary revenue source here is property taxes. The growth in the fund balance here is mainly due to the selling of Old Wilson High School and Bronson High School. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, on the revenue, a negative 215% on revenues from state sources. Why does it? Would that be because of our hardening dollars last year?
It could be, trying to think what goes into build. That line, I will have to pull up and see what actually builds that. Oh, that's capital, that's, capital outlay for the, charter schools, I'm sorry. That's PICO dollars have to flow through there, and they're expecting, yeah, let me look at that
Okay.
before I
Minus
say something.
215%.
Yeah, because it should be higher, not lower. So something was sitting in there that we're not expecting to get again, but I can't, I'll have to pull it up and see what that is. Local sources, is where it's sitting in our tax revenue, from our property taxes.
On specifically on charters and PICO, so on that, are we allowed those monies just flow through us, no administrative?
Correct.
Okay.
It's our,
And then also with the RLE portion that takes and comes to us that we then distribute, we always distribute that at 100%, even though it's never passed through to us. So like, if they're due, and I'm just using round numbers, $10,000 in RLE, we flow through $10,000. However, we may not capture $10,000 accounting in those property taxes. It may be at a 94%, so we're funding a greater rate. And I know this has been, we're getting.
right, I see
So,
what you're saying.
what's the point? And I think this has been something that's always been said, that school boards and districts have to give that money flow right through. So I'm not knocking charters by any means, I'm just knocking the formula of passing through money that is not recaptured to us. So it's coming out of our general fund dollars.
I think the reality, the way to say what you're saying another way is 100% of our taxpayers do not pay their property taxes. Okay? But they get 100%, they get their dollars based upon 100%.
We're on the hook to
And
get those
we have
dollars
to make
where
up.
they come into
So
us.
the rest of it comes out of us.
We do hold back, it's a little different than what you're saying, but we do hold back 5% administrative fee
But
from
that's,
service.
right, but that's on other things.
That is on the FEFP, but the local and the FEFP are sort of lumped together because you have to bring in so many local dollars to get the FEFP. And if you ever want to see, I'll kind of show you what DOE sends us to break down the revenue calculation for the charters. You can kind of see how that all flows through. I'm sorry, I didn't. Okay, next is our debt service fund. Debt service funds are used to pay the principal and interest due on long-term financial obligations incurred to carry out capital project activities. So on the left is our certificates of participation, we call COPS. You see we pay about $667,000 a year. That bond was refinanced during the building of Wilson Middle High School. Then on the right, we have our racetrack. We bring in about $400,000 in revenue for this, but you see we pay out a little over $211,000, so we net a little under $200,000 for this.
Will this schedule change? I'm sure it will by 2026 because the chief of middle high school building.
Well, what'll change is this isn't a revenue source we use. I think it doesn't mature, it takes so many years to mature. I don't think it will still not have matured for us to refinance at that point. Okay, next is the federal food service budget. The Special Revenue Food Service Fund tracks food service operations, revenues from the National School Lunch Program provided by the federal government, and additional student and adult fees. Provide support for the school lunch program. This program is totally self-sufficient, takes care of itself. All right, next we have the federal budget comparison. And these are special revenue funds for grants received from federal sources, including Title I, Title II, IDEA. And then we have the self-insurance budget. The internal services funds are used to account for the school board's self-funded group health benefits to its employees.
So if I read that right, we're gonna fund that additional 75,000 bucks.
Yes, I put $100,000 transfer into general fund budget. We did not have to do that last year, but you know, the year prior to that, we did 200,000. The year before that, we did 100,000. So we continue to budget for that permanent transfer. And we won't know if we have to do that until about January, February.
But that revenue's in, that 100,000 transfers in the revenue, and it's still 75 for expenses, right?
No, it would show up,
I'm sorry, it's 75.
it'll show up as an inter-fund transfer. Okay. So you guys have any questions about the budget, or want me to go back over anything else before we go? All right, I just put together a little graph to kind of show you all the funds by object and how we are spending our money. So you'll notice that about 62% goes for salaries and benefits, and of that, about 57% is for classroom teachers. Next, we have purchase services, so our contract work is about 12% of the budget. Other expenditures is 10%, and this is mainly those self-insurance claims, which equate to about $5.6 million a year. We have materials and supplies at 6%, capital outlay at 5%, interfund transfers, those are transfers between funds, 3%, and energy services, 2%.
Go back, purchase services, a lot of that is people that we contract want to provide services to students.
This is also where charters sit, any payment we make out to charters, and those are right.
So my point is that that's money coming towards kids.
Yes. Yes, this is by
Service
object,
students.
not fund. Or I'm sorry, and I'll break that down at next, the tentative reading issues. Okay, so let's review the ads that need to be approved today. First, we'll talk about the budget summary ad, and it's just a snapshot of everything that we discussed today. Does anybody have any questions about this?
Yes, is there any discussion, or we need to have a motion before we discuss, I guess?
I need to make a motion to approve the notice.
Second. It's been moved and seconded, we adopt the fiscal year budget for 1920 for the notice of, any discussion? Just I have one, because if we look at our total revenues and balances under special revenues, I would say capital projects, 9.2 million,
That includes that fund balance of a little over $5 million that's itself on those two schools, and any carryover capital dollars we didn't spend from last year to before. But the majority of the itself is just.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Lane. Item G is approval of the minutes of the June 25th, 2019 board meeting. Are there any additional corrections?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the June 25th meeting. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Okay, we're moving to the consent agenda. I don't know about you all, Monday, we're scheduled long, but I know each of you had opportunities to ask questions and have dialogue about the consent agenda. We'll open the floor up for discussion.
Just one of the things I want to bring to your attention, you'll see the mental health assistant compensation plan, and Dr. Pratt will speak to the mental health has really come to the forefront here since department, and we have a requirement that we train every adult, every school board employee has to receive mental health training. And Mr. Weber's been doing much of that. First off, we have to train trainers so we can do that, because you're talking about 800 over 800 employees. And now next year, we're going to have a requirement to provide 6 hours of training, mental health training for our students. So that's 5,200 students that we have to provide mental health training for. So the mental health aspect of the safety component is huge, and we're very fortunate to have an asset like Dr. Pratt, an expert, to help her lead us in this conversation and direct us in the right place. We'll make a conversation about this.
If you will, let me just make a few statements about the plan that has been presented to you. Last year, Senate Bill 726 had some mandates in it for mental health, and this was the first time that the county had presented a mental health plan to be approved by the board and also by the Department of Education. This bill, 7030, basically extended Bill 7026. And what I think happened after reading that bill is that it tried to strengthen mental health services to the students that we serve. Under the old your plan last year, we didn't eliminate some things, we just strengthened some things that they were added. For example, last year under the 7026 bill, it called for services to be provided via a multi-tiered system. We were able to do that last year. It also called for identifying those students at risk, and we were able to do that last year. This year, under the new bill, one of the things that they strengthened, and you will find that in the report, is that they strengthened the communication requirement, which I think is excellent. Let me tell you why. It's because when we have students that are Baker-Act, students that are out-of-home placement, whether it's because of domestic violence in the family or because of drug use, parents arrested, whatever the situation is, or we have kids out because they're being abused physically and mentally, sexually. We don't always get information about those students. The new bill has basically opened up the reporting criteria so that in the past, mental health services and what we do for kids were protected. So those kinds of counseling, intervention services, we couldn't share unless we had the parents' permission to do that. This new bill allows for sharing of that information if it impacts the under certain conditions. Student has been investigated, or to aid in that process, or if it would aid in the student's treatment. And so sometimes a kid may have been vaporized and come back to the school we don't know about. So that communication required piece, I think, is very critical. So what this will do for us is to force us to have more communication and open dialogue with those agencies in the community that we have contracts with to provide services. The other thing that it will do, and when a student has transferred from one school within the district to another school within the district, it will allow us to be able to share those plans with students. So if a mental health provider is seeing a student but does not have a treatment plan, the school can request that. Because every provider should have at least a treatment plan for a student. What goals you're working on to help that student develop resiliency and coping skills, and to deal with the other negative behaviors that are impacting and hurting and preventing them from being able to be successful within the school system. So the communication requirement, the timeline requirement, so that when you get a referral, you can't just sit on it. I was called last year, to provide some services for students because they'd been referred and the provider never picked them up. But these were students. This was a student, I just gave you one, that had tried to commit suicide twice. There was no reason that that student should not have been picked up. So it gives a timeline that when we get a referral, we must do an assessment on that student within 15 days of that referral, and then see that student and provide, based on that assessment, and that's necessary because you want to know and validate the diagnosis of whether it is a mental health diagnosis or whether it's just some emotional disturbance and distress that that student is going through, but they don't have a necessary mental illness or mental health diagnosis. So the timeline is good. And also for community, they put a timeline for community agencies. If we send a referral to a community agency, they must respond to that student within 30 days. So the timeline, they strengthen the timelines. They also, I think, and I've also told you about the sharing of confidential information. We can share that. Before, people hide behind that. Well, not necessarily hide behind that. They were in conjunction with the law. But if you have more than one agency working with a student, you need to be able to dialogue about that student, whether the parent gives permission or not. So this bill opens it up to be able to do that. Now, where Mr. Edison is coming from is that mental health education awareness piece, in terms of students being more aware that services are available and that they can get help for services. I believe the universal at-risk behaviors will allow them to be able to get that in a more timely manner. We had last year, the identification of at-risk students, but what this new plan is calling for is for it to be more concise, more consistent across the board and for all schools. There are various ways in which I believe that mental health awareness can take place with students. One of which, if a school has a newsletter, I believe that we can target various areas of mental health, and that goes in the newsletter, so it goes out to all of the teachers and goes to the students, can go to the students or it can go to the parents. If we have a morning announcement show, sometimes we can put a mental health tip on that as well. And of course, Dr. Hall last year provided quite, and along with Mr. Weber, provided quite a number of mental health awareness workshops. And I guess the most recent was a train-the-trainer. so that we'll have trainers within our own district who can provide that. The challenge would be how to get that done with the number of students that we have within and meeting the requirements of the law.
Dr. Pratt, I'm
Yes.
sorry to interrupt you real
Yes,
quick.
that's okay.
On that note, this new bill with the timeline they've imposed, and you saying that you are now only able to see certain students.
Well, last year, what we're requiring and what we're asking in this plan is that some of the money that has been allocated for mental health that, and she tried last year to get more service providers because 95 and 100 and something is just too many students to take on and do all the other things in terms of assessments of those students. What I do for mine, and I'm sure the others do too, but I didn't ask, is that when I get a referral, I do for every student that I get, I do a screening and an assessment on that student. From that screening and assessment, I do a treatment plan. And I have timelines for evaluating the progress of that student. And I keep counseling notes every time I meet with them. So that's a lot to do for a student. So needless to say, when I do my services with students, there's just a small window of opportunity to work with them because of the school day. You just don't have 8 or 10 hours to speak, to spend with them. So the majority of that time is spent really dealing with the student and then afterwards. So I spend many hours afterward dealing with them. Not to mention parents who sometimes you have to counsel with, consult with, provide recommendations to, but that's all a part of that gestalt process of dealing with students. Because sometimes the parents are the catalyst that keeps it going rather than, being able to help the student gain more stability. Okay, so it is difficult. It's going to be a challenge. If she's not able to hire additional service providers, I'm not sure what we will do, to be very honest with you. We do what we have to do to make it work. But ideally, 25 to 30 students, then you can see them once a week. You can also have more dialogue and contact with parents. You can also have more consultation with teachers and administrators if they have issues. And you can do some preventative things. For example, if you have kids that are referred to you, several kids that may have anger issues, you can have groups with those kids. Or the kids that are identified as at risk. Not mental health, they don't have a mental illness, but sometimes there are underlying reasons for that anger or for that acting out. And so when you are aware of that, then you can run some consistent groups, to be able to prevent it from getting worse, if you will. So there's some things about the new bill that I like. And as part of that plan, we are asking for additional staff to be able to meet the needs more adequately of the students. There were some students that were referred to me last year, didn't have mental health issues, but they had problems in the classroom. And I did observations of those kids, and I made recommendations to teachers, and they were able to implement those and prevent those from escalating. We do have a behavior specialist that she hired, and we'll hire another that can take on that kind of responsibility. So that's a plus. The other part of that, like I said, is when you have less students, then you're spending more time doing preventative things than you are just reacting and just putting out fires. I don't mind putting out fires, but if I can be proactive, that's where I like to go. Any other questions that I haven't maybe brought up that I should?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Pratt, this is hypothetical, but knowing how important the first thing is in our mission statement to keep the students safe, and how on the forefront school safety and security and knowing the Stoneman Douglas Act, a student gets identified, okay? And maybe Mr. Weber, so you can chime in here. So knowing that we don't want to repeat, walk us through what you would do, what's our protocol with that?
Well, the threat assessment team has a protocol that you're following. But where I see mental health is that once that student has been identified, then he gets referred to me. And I've seen students that make threats. My goal is to make sure that whatever the issue was, whether they've been bullied and they're just sick and tired of that, or whether they are, they have some other issues, my goal is to work with them to help them resolve those issues, problem solving, so that they don't, and that to make sure too that they have some other alternative ways of handling their discontent and their anger against the system, so that they don't make additional threats. So in that respect, my job becomes preventative, okay, with those students. That's some that I've seen this year that has not made any additional threats and appear to be doing well. But I don't, I didn't just let them go. And when, or if it's a student who, may have been singing a song about Pratt, but no actual, threat that they've made, then, that the counseling with them may not be ongoing, but I never stop in terms of monitoring them, meaning that I may not see them every week or twice a month, but I do make contact with them once a month to make sure everything is going okay, and with the teacher and administrator. So threats, self-harm, violence, any type of violence in school is just very, very critical. I will tell you that from the students that I saw for our counseling, the greatest number of those students were in the area of depression, self-harm, abuse. The violence in terms of actual threats was not as high as those areas. Okay, so I think it's important though for us to know that to do the assessments and the screenings, because that helps us to fine tune the underlying reasons. But all of the students, and threats is certainly high on the list. And so anytime there was a threat and the principal made me aware of that and wanted me to see that student, whether that student was seeing another counselor or not, I made contact with that student and I saw that student. So I usually don't overlap services because it's unethical. But if that student has made that threat in that school environment, I will see that student. Just see a student to make sure that that communication is given to the counselor who have that student see. And even though I won't see them, I will monitor them.
So within the times that you're meeting with the student and the student makes a threat, what's our protocol? What do you do then?
I will contact the administrator first, because there is, in every school, I believe, like I said, an assessment team that will deal with that. Now, I have not, because last year, it's all over the county, I was not a part of that threat assessment team. But the principals knew my schedule, they knew where I was, and when I was there, or if they would call me and say, could you come? I did. I made adjustments in my schedule to be there. So yeah, that would be my first line, is to contact the principal, okay? And I try, I'm gonna let you know that when I'm at a school, I try to make sure that I meet the principal, I know the guidance counselors, I know the, you know, whoever, the SRO, you know, I meet with them, I talk with them. So, I try to make myself available, yes, available to them and know that they can come at any time, you know, doors open. Any other questions?
I think I just have one, because we got put in this situation, and I want to make sure that there's loopholes. But if we had an individual student who was referred or went to an outside provider outside of our school system, you said 70-30 would allow that communication to come back to us.
It will, and what it has also done, any student that comes into the school system must now put on their registration form that whether or not they had known, okay? And so I think that's a plus as well, you know, because you'll be able to then track. So many of our students get lost in the shuffle, you know, because of that lack of communication. Or people say, well, I can't share this information. And so the legislature has made it possible now that you can't say, well, it's just confidential, I can't share it. Because if it involves that treatment of that student or an investigation that this student may be in another county, made a violent threat against the school system, and now he's or she is in this county, and you have no knowledge of it. You know.
So is that, so that it doesn't fall through the cracks, and I understand it, is that mental health provider required to have that conversation with our district, or is the district supposed to be on the radar looking for this all the time?
All mental health providers, agencies are required to share that information. Now, we don't have control, if you will. I mean, if let's just say village counseling will sign, I'm not going to share that information. I can't go and fire the staff. I can say to them if I have a contract with them, as part of that contract, it's in that contract that you will do this, and then disband that contract. But it will require some adjustment, and it will require a little more on our part to make sure that we're keeping a listing of who we have that we are referring to communities, the agencies, and to let them know, you know, remind them of the requirements of the law. You know.
Yes. Any more questions? That helps a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Pratt.
Okay, the consent agenda. Like I said earlier, we had an opportunity to speak with staff about the consent agenda. Is there any comments or questions?
I have just a question. Can you just review with me the agreement with the Marion County and the goods and services and what we do? I mean, I've read that, but I don't know exactly what we get from them. It's a big one too. And we did have a lot of contracts. Read and go over, but there were many in there. It's towards near the end. It does give us exhibit A, the scope of work, but can you just kind of break it down for me?
Well, I know we have a lot of work that we do with various school districts around, for example, just one of the kind we do is with the transportation. But it's just anytime we have some work that we do. So that's just a standard contract.
So we're not always locked into that, that amount, but the invoice, it does give us like dates and everything that you pay the 22. So we have the bus, but then, I mean, what else do we do for that money?
Ma'am, can you?
Let's see, Arlen, that's for Teresa Pender.
that's whenever they go out and they do site visits on kids that need to be identified to go into pre-K early, so if they have some kind of learning disability or hearing or vision or something like that, so.
So they do child fund as well?
Child. And that's our former social worker, Terry Folk.
And one of the King sisters used to get that.
And so that's that much services that they provide.
They're the fiscal aides for that group.
That's all the questions.
Mr. Gallagher, you have a question?
A couple comments. So I about had a heart attack going through here, seeing some of these retirement, and then it says at the end drop, so that always freaks me out so a little bit. So people like Ms. Kathy McCain, Mr. Frank Powers, who served this district so well, so always love to hopefully extend and go beyond the period of drop, so I just appreciate their efforts there. And in spirit, channeling my Mr. Turner, item 24. I know that person, I know he's a good person, but I also know that we have done some things to help out, and sure hope that it lasts longer than the last time.
We've had significant conversations.
So I say that, I know that he'll be an asset to that school and to the football program. I just hope he stays. So
We've had conversations.
with that, just always good to see a former student come back and teach at their home. So nice to have some of those there. We've got them coming throughout the district, from Steeling West Thunder, but specifically see that Ms. Tessie Crosby coming back there. And also thankful to kind of poach somebody from another school and bring them. So Ms. Carrie Watson coming to be his here key in the office. So
I think she has some trouble with it.
I know. So Mr. Aswell. So it's always good to have grandbabies close by. So and things like that. So appreciate all the efforts. I know we've had an extended time, so I know there were a lot of contracts. So Ms. Anson, thank you for getting those to us. So I do hate to see number 12 go. I know that thought a lot about her, Ms. Healy, so if we can do anything to get her back into our district. I know she's going to a unique school down in Citrus County, so which is where she's at. So I'd love to get her back. So, thanks, sir.
Mr. Gallagher. Any more comments, questions? Just want to have a couple. On the contract with, KG Services, 10, we have 10 hotspots for those. Okay.
This is kind of a pilot program that we want to try. What we're looking at doing is creating another alternative placement possibility for some students that potentially may have weapons charges or charges that are felony charges that are so great that we may be able to offer alternative placement for them through Levy Virtual. So basically these cheap hotspots are pre-filtered. They only have so many hours, but the filters are built in so that they can't just go everywhere. But we would give them, they should already have a Chromebook, and then we would give them this hotspot, Kajika hotspot, and they would be able to do their coursework through Edgenuity at home and not even have to endanger our other students on our campuses.
The law says that even though a student has been charged with a felony, he still has to serve it. So some of these felonies are violent felonies, and my way to serve these kids all that.
I just wanted to make sure that my first assessment was we were going to pass hotspots out for people to take home, like on loan out like a library. So I'm sure that was not the business we were getting into.
Oh, and, you know, and really the price was not, you know, out of range for, you know, some potential shifting of services to, you know, a more secure location.
I just had two others, and Mr. Cowart made comment in general with, and I know she's not gone, but going into the drop, I guess we're until 2024, but Patty Griffin has been a staple at Williston Elementary and Williston, or Joyce Williston. That's one of those we were talking about earlier, you don't find a replacement for them. And anyway, if I could, she's given, I don't know how many years, it doesn't say, how many years do you know?
It's around 30.
Long time. Long time, and it's hard for me to imagine, because when I look at her, I think it was her my age or younger. She's taking better care of herself.
She didn't tell me before she did that, so when I read this.
And then, they're really excited about number 19, Travis Bergdahl, which is a graduate from Wilson High School, who's going to enter as our high school horticulture teacher in Wilson. I got to be a part of that process with Mr. Smith. I told Mr. Smith, I said, when we find the right person, you'll understand that he'll dig plants. And when we got done with the interview, Mr. Smith goes, that guy digs plants. And he's excited about valves and solenoids and greenhouses. And anyway, not only that, I think he would say this out in the room, but he goes, I never thought about teaching. There was only one job that would ever interest me, and that was Mr. Wilder's job. And I think he's there for the right reasons. So. And that's about the kids. We will continue to press forward with our winning tradition in Wilson High School graduates from Wilson.
Glad to see you so confident.
Yes,
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I also would be remiss, number 55, so, Mr. Rockwood has served this district really well, and a lot of knowledge between his ears, so, and I know we're trying to work out some kinks to be able to still use that knowledge, so just appreciate his efforts, so. And my first question too to him was, is your wife's name? So, just appreciate him too.
Right, any other comments, questions?
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. There's no further discussion. Vote, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Superintendent comments, recommendations?
I got several comments today. Well, first off, as you know, kudos to our schools and our school staff for our hard work this year. I feel like it's kind of like a NASCAR race when you got the curves. So I think we finally, as a school district, have come out of a curve and we're entering a straightaway when it comes to student achievement. We worked very, very hard this year. Some of the things that we've done, and it's kind of like plowing new ground. You know, new ground is harder than it is to repel ground that you plowed a lot of times before. So we've done a lot of that work. Our district, as a district, we've come up 6%. That's huge. And that's huge. We are by no means satisfied where we're at. Our goal is next year to become an A. We have 4 of our schools this year will be have come up with a letter grade, and they'll be doing bonus money this year. And Joyce Bullock takes part of that because I see Joyce Bullock and Wilson Elementary School as one school. They're not, it's all, we want to call it Wilson Elementary School. That's the way I look at it. So anytime we have conversations with one, we have conversations with the other. So, and that, I think that goes a long way as to why Wilson Elementary School made the gains they did, because of the work that they've done at Joyce Bullock. It's not in isolation. Now, we've done a lot of work that is not graded. For example, the board has put a great emphasis on K through 2. And at our next board meeting, we're going to have principals here bring to a new kindergarten or first grade report card, and then next year, follow with a second grade report card. So we've really tried to ramp up what's going on and solidify, you've made an investment in our pre-K for those kids, like doing all-day pre-K. Now, in Williston, for example, how many Melissa, you got?
We're gonna have 5 full classes this year. We had 3 just a couple of years ago, and we currently have 15 kids on the wait list.
Whereas Chief, on the other hand, a lot of things, because you have providers, and they won't necessarily, if you go to our school for BPK, they're not going to take this for aftercare. And so that dictates, and I understand that as a parent, that dictates some of the decisions what they do. But we see all kids. We don't see some of the kids, we see them all. And some of these kids that we see in PPK, if we don't get them there, they won't walk into kindergarten cold. There's not going to be any services whatsoever. So we're doing a whole lot better job, I think, preparing them for kindergarten. Especially a lot of these kids who have never had any sort of school training, whether you call it Sunday school or anything else like that. And those efforts are fixing to be seen. Because those kids are going to start rolling into third grade next year, I'm ready. So you're going to see a lot better job, those kids being ready for third grade.
And then we're advertising, I saw that in our contract where we're doing another pre-K teacher and we're adding.
Yes, ma'am, what it is, and it's kind of confusing. I know that if it's, you have to, it's one person for 11, is that correct? And then for the next 10, you get a pay. So
For a class of 20.
Yeah, for a class of 20. So we try to serve as many kids as we can, and as they grow, we have tours. Opposite of that is when we don't, then we're not going. So, you know, kids come to serve. So, anyhow, so I'm very proud of the work we're doing. I think as a group, the administrators, and y'all are free to talk about, chime in as well. I think we've got the best two principals all working together, communicating. We just come off last week, a 3-day, 2.5-day workshop as administrators. First time we've done that. We spent a lot of time, and I'm going to email you this article. It's a little short article. I just got it in here so I can keep up with it. It's called Opportunity Bid. And it talks about teaching standards and rigor and what we're missing. A lot of times we think we're doing it or not. Spent a lot of time talking about this. And any comments from you about our last 2.5 days?
I thought it went really well. I think, when we look at some differences, some changes that we've made, we certainly have relied heavily on our school administrators. It's more of a collaborative unit. They've taken a lot more ownership. I mean, we are kind of shorthanded here at the district office, and so we, out of necessity, I think, have had to rely on them to take more of what we're doing from a curriculum standpoint on. So they worked together really well on standards and different areas, both at the elementary and the secondary level. But I think that that collaborative partnership with them actually has increased their ownership, if that's even possible from a principal standpoint, of what's going on, not only in their own school, but the district as a whole. And by them working together, it's I don't know, it's hard to put your finger on exactly, but you can see a difference. At least I can. And I think that's really has helped us become more of a team. And there's still some healthy competition, don't get me wrong. Williston and Chiefland and Bronson and Cedar Key and Yanktown, there's still some healthy competition with the principals, but they are all rowing the boat in the same direction. So I think that's very helpful.
I think a piece of it too is the fact that we were able to bring proven experts in to help do professional development for administrators and reading coaches, and we will continue that. So it was a difficult transition, more so probably for middle school than it was for elementary. I think elementary had already realized that it wasn't working because they knew they were working really hard, but they weren't seeing the results. So they bought into this whole new way of work of teaching standards and assessing standards and understanding that you can't teach them in isolation. So I think this year we could start much stronger. We knew we would see growth, or we sure thought we were going to see growth. I think we would all been extremely disappointed if we had not, but we did see the growth, and with growth will come proficiency.
Mr. Superintendent, we going back to talking about pre-K. Do you see the need that we have certified teachers? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot here. And I know there are some districts that do that, so I know this also involves Miss Lake and finances and everything, so
think that would be a huge step, but I think a step in the right direction would be a certified teacher for each of the schools. Just so that there was someone certified there to guide. I mean, our pre-K teachers are amazing, they are hardworking, the expectations that we put before them are just astronomical. But to give them the support of a certified teacher, I think would definitely be a huge benefit.
One area that we're looking at is, make sure I get this right, Melissa, the conditional ESD person for these and service is.
Okay. Laura Clock serves all of our ESC students in pre-K across the whole district, and that is a feat. I don't know how she manages, but in that, I think our students could be better served by having more time with a certified ESC teacher, so.
Like I say, many of our kids that we get, they don't go to another daycare track. And so it's a great opportunity for us to activate them to school. And a lot of these kids, and I know Carol's got an initiative out there working with our communities, because if you get them, if you can expose them to reading between 0 and 3, that's huge. And we've got to working on that. But a lot of these kids have never had anybody read a book to them. And so the earlier that we can intervene these kids' lives, it's just like in compound interest. It goes on further than that.
How many pre-K classrooms?
5.
Wow.
15 on wait list, which costs
15 on wait list.
teacher, right?
Right.
Yes.
I will say too that those pre-K teachers voluntarily come to professional development. With Sandra Prue last year, they were constantly seeking her out for support. So we were able to find ways though so that they could be compensated. But yeah, there's that struggle too. They can't, some of our federal grants won't cover pre-K. That's why we depend a lot on the support from the foundation to support some of our pre-K initiatives, because the federal grants do K and up, they don't cover pre-K.
I think, and looking at some things that are coming down the pike, I think there's some people that are kind of peeling back the rug, so to speak, on pre-K. And so I know, career tech was a focus where everybody agreed. I think this may be another thing that may be an agreement on both sides of the aisle.
Absolutely, it's all focuses on primary and closing the gap.
And early intervention is the key to my intervention, is early intervention. But going back to our school grades, we are our goal is to be managed here. We have the first time ever with Phillips, Citrus County, Marion County. So I'm very proud of all the work that they've done. And on the staff, and see how they bring our straight away, so they pick it up speed. So, yeah, well, next board meeting, it's going to be, the agenda's going to be quite full. So just let you know, there's going to be a lot of stuff on it. So much stuff, matter of fact, we're going to have a board workshop starting at 8:30. It's morning work. There's been a lot of things that's going on, I want to keep aware of different things that's going on. Personnel, because of the nighttime meeting, I'm sorry, it's a nighttime meeting, so it's going to be at 5:30. So there's a lot of things that you've had questions over time, personnel. I know we're going to talk about the sub-programs, so we're going to start at 5:30, do a board workshop on just a personnel matters. And so you're going to get a multitude of different things, and one of those things is going to be the how our sub-finder things working. And so you'll have that and some other things to talk about. So that's going to check off a couple of different things that you'll have conversation about in the past.
Is that August 8th?
July 30th.
That's Tuesday.
Yeah, then the first thing you got to do, we have to give that, by the way, that's 6 because we have to advertise for the trip.
This Thompson is so late.
Yes, ma'am. Also, we've had a change in some unforeseen circumstances. On August 7th is going to be our new employee orientation. And that's going to be, I think, the first PE day. And that's going to be from 12:30 to 3:30 at Boston High School. And also just we've got some negotiations on some salary stuff, so after board meeting, we'll talk executive session. That's it.
All right. change it up today. We're gonna start with, Mr. Kaminsky on the other end, and this way we can move comments.
You always start with you.
I was really gonna start with you.
I was getting excited, I'm like, okay, get it. Yankeetown Open House, August 8th, 5 to 7. We're coming to the end of summer, which I can't stand, but probably shouldn't say that as a board member, but I love the summer. And Ms. Hurst was telling me it's neat, I don't know, I'm not familiar with it, but they're hiring a middle school science teacher from India through the TPT Cultural Exchange Program, which is a really neat program, and I spoke with her earlier, and she said she'd be willing to come and give us a short presentation on the process.
Mark, can you add a little bit?
Yes, we have currently just hired 3 of those teachers, and we have a contract with MEFACT, and they vetted this process, and so it was a contract signed, and Danae has a history from her other district of going through this process, so she was the first one. And the whole process is so easy. You can go in, put, if you want a biology teacher or a science teacher, you put that in. They come up with all the candidates. These candidates, most of them have their masters and some have their doctorates. They've been screened. They have teaching experience already. You can click on the picture and this person will talk to you, give a synopsis of who they are, what they do, so you can hear their dialect, you can hear their conversation and how they communicate. And then you click on another button and it tells you set up an interview. You can go right in, put your interview on, and they can interview live right on through the internet. So it has been, this is a new process for us, but so far we've hired 3 tremendous candidates.
It's very exciting, the teacher shortage. And my only other thing is the district is a D. I think that's very exciting. Like you said, we're on the straightaway, so I'm excited about leaving time in the future.
Mr. Asman? Pretty cool.
Summertime in the school system always impresses me because there's so much that gets done in a very limited amount of time. And I'm also always impressed with, we always talk about cream rises. There's sometimes you see cream rising in the school system. And this may hurt some feelings and it may not hurt some feelings. I'm an old man now, so I can't say I don't care, but it needs to be pointed out. You'll notice in the summertime, you'll see teachers. You'll see some teachers, administrators, various people bragging about where they've been on vacation. I went here, I spent my time there. Then you'll see others, the cream. They're sitting there going, what can I do to improve for next year? How can I make this better? We notice here, we'll see them going to conferences. We'll see them meeting here to say, hey, how are we going to make that be an A? I always appreciate seeing that cream. Right top. Everybody deserves vacation, everybody have a good time. But I want to say kudos to those people that go, just cause I don't have to be there at 8 o'clock looking at that little kid. That's my job goes on. There's many other people sitting right here with that. And I think that's very impressive. During this time of year, I often change my hat. During the period of August, I'm not really a school board member. That sounds crazy. I become a daddy. And so as that daddy, I have to start getting ready going, all right, we got to go back to school. And I have to go to those open houses, and I have to go meet with teachers and all that. And during those times, I may not have a whole lot to say because I'm not working this job. I'm just like this Mr. Coward. We discussed his daughter. She's getting ready to looking at colleges and stuff. So those times, I may not have a lot to offer comment. That's because I'm being a daddy during the month of August, because August is hectic. And I want to end with something completely different. But I want to publicly congratulate the head of the Department of Education for Florida for being basically Man of the Year for charter schools. In his recognition, Mr. Richard Corcoran received that designation. I think it's well deserved because of his efforts for charter schools. He's a huge proponent of them. I would love to next year personally shake his hand when he is named Man of the Year for regular, public, classic local schools. I'd like to see him get behind places like this. Charter schools are great. I'm a charter school. We need a little cut of that pie too. And I'd like to be able to hug his neck and say, thank you for your hard work. Public school's just as hard. And some people don't want me criticizing that man, but he took that job just as I took this one. If I can get criticized, you can too. When you look at the way that money's divvied up, you look at the way that money, all that paper trail, you'll see why that man was their man of the year. He's their champion. I'd like to see him be our champion equal, not more, just equal proportion to classic public schools. And congratulations, Mr. Corbin. Oh, and I also like to say, you paid attention today. There's been nothing but good news coming out of the Levy County School Board meeting. It's been one bit of good news after one, after one, after one. And that's fantastic. And I want to say thank you to the chief assistant for being here to cover that good news and to constantly spread our good news. I will not name others, but some only want to study on negative things and try and stir stuff up. That's not true journalism. True journalism is being independent, being non-biased, not having an agenda, just setting forth the record. And we'll pay attention to this person right here's record to see what true journalism in this county is. And I say that with a background in journalism. Very proud of the fact that my family owned the Big County Journal for years. And my uncle started the Chiefland Citizen many, many years ago, and at one time owned the Wilson Sun. And so I got a little knowledge of having worked with those about true journalism. And I like to see a true journalist in our audience. Okay. And I guess the others did chuckle because we didn't have nothing bad to talk about. There wasn't nothing to make up for that. And that can be on YouTube. I appreciate it. I'll turn it over. And I have nothing else to offer, and here's why. These three characters here will always steal whatever these two characters have to say.
Well, you just stole my thunder.
There we go.
So,
That's right.
Once every 6 months, I'll steal this thing.
You got it.
I did have down, so thank you very much for your efforts and all you do in getting out the news on what's going on with our school district. So I appreciate your efforts to be here. So I know sometimes that doesn't happen, so but just appreciate you when you are here. Appreciate your efforts. Kudos also. School grades, district grades, awesome. Just appreciative. So as I said to one administrator, I'm so glad that I won't name him. So that we trained him up to Cedar Key and we got him going and he's doing great things. So and
I've been on time with lots of
he
days.
did spend some time talking about that. And that's no dig. So all of our administrators are doing an excellent job and putting a lot of effort. So I appreciate them. So and you know, when we take this job here, I'm fine with taking the criticisms when they're due. And I also want to always make sure that we go back. And I know there's been some arrows that have been flung at certain administrators in our midst here. And I just want everyone that's at the back row there and up front here with us to know how much we appreciate you and how much we have your back. And that you want to criticize somebody, there's 6 people sitting here that they can criticize. And we're the people to criticize. We're not going to criticize our employees from the dais, or we're not going to accept that. Appreciate the chair for his leadership. Now, on to another thing. So, summer reading program. We have had an awesome few weeks with that. It's concluding tomorrow in Cedar Key. We could do something like that without the foundation and our partner, Duke Energy. It's a new thing. I'm hoping to see the fruits of our labors come August as we start into the swing of things. So, but it's just been really neat to see that and to see some high schoolers getting some community service and interacting and doing some great jobs, and also some community members getting out and interacting with that. What a unique thing, and I think we can figure out a way to expand it beyond first graders. I think that's going to be an awesome feather in our cap, so it's a nice thing. So. And then the last thing is, we had a young man from Cedar Key who was named the state statewide top camper at the Florida FFA Forestry Camp, so, and you might get a name. So he's a great kid, puts a lot, represents Cedar Key extremely well, so, and he's got one parent that's a Cedar Key shark, and now she's teaching there, so, and then I know on that mama side that he's got deep roots in Cedar Key, so just appreciate all his efforts, and just looking forward to getting things rolling. So, Ms. Marla, how many openings do we have?
Currently, we have 11, which is, last year we started with almost 20. So this is great, and some of these right here are already kind of filtered out. They just haven't been, the paperwork hasn't been done. So we're excited. Our administrators have been doing an awesome job of getting right in there, doing the interviews, getting people hired. And I was just thinking, we have also hired an exceptional person for Cedar Key. He's an aeronautical engineer. He works at the Pentagon, and he's going to come and retire down with you folks. So it's been very interesting this summer to see the different people who have come in, but it's going to be a great year. So things are rolling right along.
I know we're excited about him. I know he has Cedar Key ties, and looking at his resume is quite impressive. So he's coming in to be the dean and boys basketball coach.
Volleyball coach.
We got the Rockets going on.
Well, unfortunately, we lost Miss Hackney, so she was on this list, so she's going to Volusia County. So we don't have Miss Tina Hackney. So, but anyway, so we got somebody replacing that. I think it's so now we can have a top gun.
Can I just add that Wednesday when I was talking to him on the phone was pretty interesting. He said this has been a lifelong dream of mine to come back home to Cedar Key, and he's probably more excited than we are.
Right.
And so it's pretty awesome.
So we have somebody also who's coming from Germany, I think, so to be PE teacher and the girls basketball coach. So that is one thing. So anyways, Avery, so you've been so good here. I got a whole bunch of candy here for you.
I have to.
Number one, and kudos to the personnel department. One of the things that we want to make sure that we vet and get people that are, don't have any issues that we employ. And so that takes a little time, but we've worked hard to try, we have to sign these folks as soon as we can. So we work real hard to make sure we speed up that process. And so, I mean,
It has been, yes.
We appreciate that.
Yes.
so we work hard to make sure that happens. And so things actually don't go through me, they go right straight to the personnel department.
And I want to say something, I probably should have just left it at this, but I know some people that, it gets to this time of year where they jump and take another job somewhere else, and I'm all about that. If you don't want to be here, by all means, I don't want to stand in your way. So, but I don't know exactly what the way is to reach out to our neighboring districts that whenever they take somebody, just to be upfront about it. And if you know you're leaving, don't wait till the last minute. And because if it's supposed to be about kids and you're supposed to be about kids, be a professional and do it right. So.
And the second thing goes back to school grades. I know we're looking at appealing Cedar Key's grade. I know that they should be an A. And it's just whether or not we're going to be allowed. It's a lagging data issue. In other words, it has to do with data that was earned not this year but last year. And it's whether or not we can appeal that process or not. If we can, if we're successful, Cedar Key will be an A.
I appreciate those efforts, so we want to get it done, so we don't want anything that we didn't earn. So,
Well, after all those wonderful comments, I want to just follow up, with what Cameron said. I agree with him with working with his charter school, and we certainly want to congratulate him if that's possible with the public schools. And I want to know what we can do as a board or as a district to encourage that and be a part of that, so that we can say that. And like you said, he needs a little more emphasis on public education, but what can we as a board do to help? And that's kind of what I want to focus on and think about. And then the same with our A schools. I think we we made a lot of gains and we made a lot of progress, but we always want to do more. We want that A district, and what can we as a board do our part to help with that success? So I certainly want to focus on that and see.
So we're going to have this year more and more conversation that's going to involve you.
Okay.
Okay, and workshop type stuff. And so, and what you're going to see, I hope, you should see, is at the next board meeting, you're going to be adopting the strategic plan. That's going to be on the agenda. And the other thing that's on there for me to have a conversation about is, I don't know if I got an agenda or not, there's no reason to be today. The legislation starts early this year, and we need to go ahead and start adopting our legislative platform.
Right.
So we need to have that conversation. Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to say is next board meeting is a busy meeting. So, but you're right, that's our legislative platform. That we're going to have these conversations throughout the year, and because we, as a district office here, we've had to, out of necessity, and I think it's the right thing to do, we're listening to people with their feet on the ground in our schools, and say, okay, well, we're thinking about doing this, how's that going to implement in the schoolhouse? So we're having this conversation so that make sure that if we do something here, it makes a difference for kids, and we're not just doing something.
Right.
And so,
I agree.
yeah, and so a part of that is that we're going to have more and more conversations about where we are, checkpoints and touch points and stuff like that throughout the year to make sure, because we can't just, like last year was the first year that you actually had a checkpoint come to you. And where the principals came and they did a presentation to you. But we're going to have more and more of these type of things. And so when you do that, we need to make sure that we as district office here, make sure we articulate to our principals things that you can do as board members to support them, to support kids.
Right. That's great. Thank you very much. I think it's wonderful, and I'm really looking forward to that presentation, from the subs and the pilot program. So that would be wonderful, and thank you for putting on the agenda for the next meeting.
That's it. I just have a few things. It's really good to be chairman. I always, when you're chairman, Mr. Haswell gets to speak before you, and I don't have to be politically incorrect. Because he took that out of the way.
Take that out of the way. As a friend.
I did owe what you say, Mr. Haswell, and appreciate your comments of honesty. I had been here.
Honesty is not politically incorrect, it's honesty.
Right.
That's what it is.
Yes, sir. I hadn't been here but a couple of years, 3 terms, then 4 years, I think, but, because I still get to assess, and I know Ashley's new too, but it doesn't matter when I come over here, if it's in the middle of the week or before. Most of the time when I come during the middle of the week, this room's always full of somebody from across the district. And this is new. There's like people sitting in here that instruct our kids talking about what's going to happen in the district. And I think, I don't know if I'm saying this in the right way, but in the past, there's been leadership with force down. And I like this grassroots concept of people like Melissa sitting in the room and other principals and teachers guiding direction and helping mold what our district looks like. And I don't want us to miss that because I got an invitation to our Williston schools. I got an invitation. I'm going to cook for them. And I think it's a good way to put it, on our way to an A celebration. In other words, we're happy that we were a B, but at the same time, there's still goals set forward. And I know the instruction in the classroom, and I know what administrators are doing, but I think the whole concept together of putting everybody at the table and the grassroots up instead of a dictatorship down is probably part of the reason we're headed in the right direction. I just didn't feel in the past, so I appreciate that. We are going to feed all of the teachers, personnel, I don't know, 300 people.
Bus drivers.
Everybody.
Staff, yeah.
On August 8th, all board members invited, noon time at the little high school cafeteria. If you want to come, they'll celebrate that. And then Melissa, or Miss Lewis, I'm sorry, you've been here the whole time. Mr. Superintendent asked you to stay. And I want you and Breezy, I know we got some projects going on in the school for safety reasons and hopefully some cosmetic reasons too. But can you explain what's going on at Joyce Bullock Elementary?
Yes, so pie in the sky is what we gave, and pie in the sky is what we got. It was really exciting. Joyce Bullock, for those of you, has never been able to see out. Like they're on you, you know, anything bad would be on you before you even do it. And then there's also access. You can come on our campus, and except for, you know, required locked doors and stuff, people could access anything without the office even knowing about it. So Reese and his crew have changed all that for us. They are currently in the midst of knocking out a 12-foot entrance, which will have a glass entry with double doors in the front. And then the fencing that's been added that looks really nice is going to have, Joyce Bullets have a single point of entry. And so they'll come in, what's normally been the principal's office is now going to be the front office. And so we redesigned some things and changed some things into new offices, put some new walls up and things, but it's very exciting and it's going to look very nice. So we're very excited for the new level of safety that we're going to give our kids.
If you have an opportunity to go out, look at also Wilson Elementary. They completed the fencing there, they're going to Roswell Elementary next. Reese, do you have a clue when they're going to start Roswell?
They're supposed to be starting as soon as they complete everything at JBE. They're coming on over, which hopefully, I don't know an exact date, but I would say sometime in the next week. But they're going to knock it out pretty quick once they get started, because there's a lot of straight, long runs of fence. So they're excited to get over there because of what they're doing. So I do not, but I can find out an exact date.
One other question we talked about, did you ever have a conversation with our sidewalk people? About them when they're going to complete the sidewalk people up from Roswell?
Yes, sir. I haven't received anything. It seems like like me and you discussed, they took off and run out the gate and then put the brakes on. So I will try to reach out to Mr. Eric again this morning and see if I can get a response. If not, I'll go to the city
Outside
hall.
of the school.
This is going to be a nightmare if it's not.
Could we maybe have like an update on what all we've done secure-wise, safety and security? Because I know how important that is, and I know that there was an article coming out of the statewide grand jury from the Attorney General stating how there's districts that aren't taking this serious, and I just like to make sure that we have showing that how important this is, and safety and security, and what we're doing. Good. Thank you.
I will say, Wilson Elementary, I appreciate the cost, man. I mean, I see the security when I go there, but like I drove by the other day, it doesn't look like maximum security. It looks like the school's going
It's
to
really
see.
nice.
That black fencing, stopping the chain link at some point and making entrance really makes it, still looks like a place of education. Okay. Any other comments? I'm sorry, Mr. Delaney was out of state today. We appreciate you being here today. I'm glad we didn't have to use your services.
Short executive session.
That's okay.
Yeah.
We'll have a short executive session. We'll take a 10-minute recess, if that's okay. If there's no objection,